So, it's been a while. I've got a lot of stuff to edit. Just took me a lot of time to do so. This one took me a huge effort to complete. It was 26 hours of recording. So let's just get into it and I'll try to do some commentary on my process. So here I started with chopper. My initial thought was to make a sticker out of chopper, so I was drawing chopper, and because I was using a reference from the internet, it was using as reference a figure model of chopper in Wano country. I just went straight into ink. I didn't even sketch him. So some proportions are off, but it was good in the end. So I showed this to some people and they really liked it, and I thought, why not draw the remaining of the crew, right? But that's like, what, 8-9 more people? Let's see. Well, when I went into Sanji, you can see I use a mechanical pencil, or you can also use just a regular pencil to sketch him first. And this is because of that proportion stuff, because I want to fit all of the crew in those 2 pages. So Sanji in reality is way bigger than Chopper, like than shown here, but if I make him taller, then I leave no space to place Jinbei, Frankie and Brook all the way up there. I figure they are probably going to be the figures in the back because they're the tallest. So I need to draw Sanji smaller so that I can fit them all in the same page. So I haven't talked yet about my process for coloring. So what I do basically is I sketch, then I ink over it, erase the graphite carefully, and then what I start doing is placing some base colors first. I don't leave like space for whites because I'm going to tackle the highlights later. The whites are pretty important, as well as the blacks. And what I start doing is laying some base colors, then putting up some shading. For shading I usually go into browns, into blues, into purples, and afterwards I use the black to really cement the dark areas, because that really makes the drawing pop out. You can see if you go into drawing and you do some shading, if you afterwards use your black to put a little bit of shading, it makes it pop out more. As you can see here I'm just using colored pencils. And what happens here in Luffy is that after placing the base colors and doing some shading, I realized that his robe is not as red as I wanted to, and he's not as tanned as I wanted to, so I place another layer of those base colors to cement that color, not leave so many whites. And here I make the same mistake again. I draw Zoro and just Zoro at this time, like drawing one character at a time. It's really not efficient. It takes a huge lot of time. It's way better to sketch them all, ink them all, and then I don't know, sometimes you use the same pencil for multiple purposes, so you can just like tackle all of them at the same time, and you'll have to pick that pencil much less often, and that really speeds it up. Like this took me 26 hours. It wasn't really efficient. But what I want you to notice here that I have done on Zorro is that I started with some, instead of laying the base colors and then going into shading, I did it the other way around on the kimono, because his kimono has some details on the bottom as well as a gray gradient all the way to the top, all the way to on his lower parts. So I started placing the values, some grays and blacks, and afterwards I do the green gradient and I do the gradient as well. And then here I finally decided to cut my losses a little bit, and I draw Nami and Robin at the same time. Here for Robin there's interesting stuff I do on her kimono, because I want her kimono to give a blue glow. I first place a base color of blue, and then just go ham on the black for her kimono, and that really pops out. You can also do it the other way around, but I figured that I could just like overload on the black, and then when I put the blue tones, they don't appear as much. And afterwards, something I really like to do afterwards I use the black is using a blending stump. It should be just coming up, because, well, you can see when you use a color in pencils, you leave some white spaces. You can think of a sheet of paper as like a mountain range. It has summits and valleys, and the pigment adheres much better to the summits because they're more exposed. So what the blending stump does is that not only it blends the colors, it picks up that, it basically picks up the pigment that's on that summit and takes it to the valley as well as other summits, blending the colors, and to the valley, taking the pigment where it hasn't reached, because like I don't really know the physics of it, but it feels pretty good. This paper is velvet paper, so it isn't as rough as many papers, but also it works for all cases. You just like good stuff, or you can just like use your finger also, or use the white pencil. That's really good. So I've already started drawing here like the three giants on the back and God Usopp, of course, and it's good because I do them all together and it takes that much less time. I should really have like started sketching them all, but also I wasn't aware I was going to do that. Something I really like about drawing this is like I pay really close attention to how I paint Frankie's left shoulder, because it's going to be a background to Robin's head, and also Jinbei's face and Jinbei's hand, because it's really in the middle, so there's that crease between the sheets, so it really requires like some patience. After finishing with the pencils, I use a blending stump and then I ink again just to get ready for my last step, which is using the whites, the highlights. I talked earlier how important the blacks are to pop out, but the white does the same thing. it not only cements the idea that all the characters are in the same shot because they're all being illuminated by the same light source, but also it helps the viewer to see where one character ends and where another begins, and that contrast is really important. So, as for which pencils to use, I use a mix of Bic Evolution, cheap supermarket pencils, and some Giotto and Watercolor Pelikans that I got from my sister because she doesn't use them anymore. So just use whatever you have access to. If you can't afford some artist grade materials, you don't really need to buy them. Like, I really feel when I'm painting, I really feel which one is the better. I can really feel the difference. But something I weigh a lot more is the technique. It's the awareness of which tones to use, and having patience and awareness of which way to hatch. And that's something that really comes with practicing and making mistakes. And years of using coloring pencils like allows me today to use these supermarket cheap pencils to do some things that my younger self wouldn't be able to do even if I owned like Caran d'Ache colored pencils. So in these kind of things, to improve, you really need to be spending more time, not just spending more money to get better. It's not really like the materials that's going to make good art. It's you that need to make good art. And it comes from here, not from your materials. So what I learned from this is that had I drawn them all together, I'd be saving a lot of time, so many hours doing this, and also would keep you from watching the same process all over again, like as I tackled one character at a time. Like, it was really not efficient and a mistake, but that's what we make mistakes and we learn from them. So tell me what you'd like to know, what you'd like to see, any ideas, any feedback or advice would be nice, really. So that's it. Huge drawing that took me 26 hours to finish and took me months to build the courage to edit this. So, you know, if you want to show some support, you like, comment, subscribe, that kind of stuff. And maybe you show this to your friends, to your dog, to your cat. And keep making mistakes, really. That's how we artists learn. That's really the only way. So, bye.